Hi everyone. In this guide we're going to look at how to paint Han Solo from Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars Legion. So, been looking for some reference photos for this, just trying to make sure I got the right colours for each of the parts of the model, and surprisingly probably unsurprisingly, there's not really much to this one. So, what we'll be doing is we'll be using the regular basic skin tone from Vallejo for the flesh. So that will be his hands and his face. And then starting from the bottom, his boots will be black. We'll also be using black on his belt, his vest, and his blaster. Those are the main things that you can see, which will be black. We're then going to go over the trousers and his hair with Vallejo chocolate brown, which we've used a few times before previously. And then one of the final parts in the base colours themselves will be using Vallejo Iraqi sand on his shirt or whatever it is under there. So those are the main pieces. Oh, forgetting one, actually his coat that he's wearing. So it's a bit of a struggle actually looking online to really try work out what colour the coat is. In some it looks like it's a very light grey. Some of the action figures show it as being brown. Some you just can't really tell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a layer of Vallejo heavy grey just as a starting point, and then from there I think what I'll try to do is try lighten it up and add some light patches and maybe some darker patches, because it's not, unlike in the other camouflage we've done so far, it's not block areas of colour. It looks almost like they've got hold of a big old trench coat and just put some spray paint on it. That looks like how they prepared the costume. So we'll start off with the base colours, then we'll go to the washes as we would do normally, and I'll come back after I've added the base colours and then we'll talk about the washes we're going to be doing. So with those colours done, we've actually finished the base coats. You can see there's not actually much to it on this model. That's because most of the details are going to be picked up when we go over and do the highlights. So these are all dry and complete. Before we go on to the highlights, we want to apply our washes as we do normally. So first up I'll be putting on a flesh wash. Again, as I've used previously, Vallejo's Game Colour Flesh Wash is my go-to for flesh. On the black areas, it might not show up too much, but I'm going to add some Citadel non-oil. That's just to kind of like give it a little bit of a shade to it, because black paint's never truly black paint. It's just a very dark grey. On parts like his hair, his trousers, and his shirt in there, we're going to use some Army Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone. Again, my go-to for shading pretty much anything which isn't flesh or metal. But then also I'm going to try something a little bit different, and on his coat there I'm going to use some Athonian Camo shade, which is a Citadel shade, which is essentially just a green-brown wash. So I think I'll put that on first. I may mix a little bit of strong tone in it if it looks too brown, but that should just give the coat a good base for us to start with before we start adding camouflage. So I'll go ahead and apply these. Once they're applied and dry, we'll come back and we'll look at the next steps. So with the washes applied, we're now going to look at the highlighting. And again for this one, not a lot really to do. So first up, I'll start with the shirt. So I'll be going back over with just a light coat of the Iraqi sand, mixing in a little bit of off-white. Don't want to take it too far because the shirt that Han Solo wears actually is sort of like a cream colour rather than white. So it's just going to be picking out the raised areas really for this one. After that, I'll probably start looking at the trousers he's wearing there. So that again will be Vallejo Game model colour, chocolate brown. And into that, to highlight that, I mix a little bit of, you can't see it, Vallejo Game Colour Earth. So that'll lighten it up. And then for an extreme highlight, because there's not really a lot else to highlight on here, so it's going to be good to make the actual ones that there are stand out a bit more. Mix in, going back to the Iraqi sand. It's a very good colour to mix in with browns, because if you mix white in with brown, it can be a bit too much. But Iraqi sand is just beige; it can lighten it up a little bit. For the hair, I'll probably be doing the same as well. Potentially, maybe missing out the step of adding the earth, because it might not be necessary. For the belt, I'll be going back using Beastie Brown, which is the colour I originally used on it, because I looked at some reference photos online and the belt's not actually black, so I'll use that. And again, probably highlight that with either Game Colour Earth or Iraqi Sand. Probably not Iraqi Sand, it might be a little bit too light for Iraqi Sand. The face, that will be done with a light colour again of basic skin tone. And then sometimes once I've done the basic skin tone, I like to give it another wash, a very, very thin wash of Flesh Wash again, just to sort of tone it back a little bit. But the sort of like extreme highlights on the face, they're done using Vallejo Model Colour Light Flesh. It's a very pale flesh, and normally I just put some on the end of the nose, a little bit on the forehead, some on each cheek, just under the eye, and then on the chin as well, if the chin's quite prominent, which in this model it is. After that, we're then on to the black. Not going to do too much highlighting on the black, because I don't want it to appear grey. So there'll be a very thin highlight of Vallejo Model Colour, black grey, and then maybe an extreme highlight on some points of Model Colour London Grey. Nothing too much, don't want it to be too intense. The final bit to do then, after that, is to look at the detailing on the model. So there's a belt buckle there which is silver, so I'll paint that silver. I'll then have to look at his trousers. On the trousers, they've got a yellow stripe in the movies. So first off, I'll give it a coat of Iraqi sand. I do that because the yellow I use, the Vallejo Model Colour Flat Yellow, is quite translucent. Yellow paints generally are. They're quite tricky to work with because there's not much pigment in them, just like when you're painting with white. So I like to give it a base coat of something else before I apply the yellow, so that the dark brown won't show through and I won't lose any detail. Once I've done those bits, I'll start looking at the jacket that he's wearing. So again, there'll be a layer of heavy grey on that. And then what I might have to do is try to think how I'm going to do the camouflage to so it doesn't look too harsh. Because as I mentioned in the previous segment, it looks like they just spray painted a coat. So there's no sharp edges on the changes in colour. So that's something that I need to have a think about. I might try use glaze medium to work on it and sort of like thin the edges of the transitions out. But I'll come back to that and we'll have a look at that together and kind of like I'll decide the best way to go on it. So I'll stop here and come back once I've made a bit of progress. And here he is, finished, prior to basing. So I've actually gone over and done quite a bit. So as I mentioned, I've highlighted the boots, I've highlighted the trousers, and you can see that I've sort of like just tried to make the raised areas a bit more obvious. See on the trousers there. The boots, I've tried not to highlight them too much. I don't want them turning grey rather than black. The shirt I've highlighted. I've done his face, which is actually a very good likeness for Harrison Ford, so I'm very impressed with that. I've done his the belt buckle, the belt itself. Gave his blaster there, as you can see, a little bit of a going over with a bit of silver. And worked on the coat, so I highlighted some parts of the coat, but then I added just some splotches, and it's not bad. I mean, compared to the pictures that I found, it's quite difficult to paint that sort of effect in this scale. So I just went over with a mix of glazed medium with, I think that was Vallejo Game Colour Earth. That's the first one, which you can't really see. That's a sort of like brown tinges. Then I did the same with black and the same with the Iraqi sand, just to try and like give some lighter patches. It's come out quite nicely. I'm very, very, very happy with the face. The detail on this model is fantastic, and yeah, it's come out nice. So very simple to paint this one, enjoyable to paint as well. Not a lot to it, and relatively quick. So I'll end it here. Go ahead and base him, and then add some pictures, and you'll be able to see what the finished model looks like. Thanks for watching. Bye.